Today's inspiring mind is Debbie Obradovich. Let's get inspired. Debbie Obradovich is a co-author of a book called Infinity. Infinity is a true story of infinite love between mother and daughter. Lauren Kiefer was murdered by an intruder on Christmas Day in 2006, and she communicates to her mother Janice through intuitive Debbie Obradovich. They soon find their lives are more intertwined than they know. Well, welcome, Debbie.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yes, it's a very interesting story. Maybe you'd like to just share a little bit of how you came upon this journey of having a connection to the spirit world.
Sure. I'd like to start, though, too, with how you and I met on a trail in Sedona, Arizona last year.
Yes.
And walking along a beautiful trail, West Fork, and for some reason, we started talking, we connected, and it's just that little light that goes on with another individual, and I felt that with you.
Yes.
So it really was a very cool connection, and we've talked a few times since. And I'm in the Chicago area, in a suburb of Chicago, and you're halfway across the country, but we still made that connection. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I actually thought about that before, prior to the interview, and it was an interesting thing. I kind of felt like a connection as well. Either the past of some type of, as I explained to you, some type of Native American connection that you may have had, or
right, some kind of, and there may be some Native American in my background, and either from this lifetime or previous, but so much to explore.
Yes.
So to start out about my story, so to speak, I guess when I came into this earth plane, I just always felt a little bit different than a lot of my friends. And I would have some experiences of feeling that I knew something before it happened. And as a young child, I'd be very confused by it. I remember telling my mom about things like with family members, like, why did I dream, or why did I feel that Aunt so-and-so was going to pass, was going to die, and then a week later she did, things like that.
Right.
And I'll never forget, and this actually relates back to Sedona, Arizona, which is a very spiritual, high energy place on the planet. And my parents this was back in the late 60s, I believe. And my parents took us on a Route 66 trip. And one of the destinations was Sedona, Arizona. And I think that that's where my chi, my life force energy was really ramped up and activated, because it was in Sedona that I recall. And I, as a young girl, I was journaling this cross-country trip that we drove out on Route 66. And I'll never forget that I had it written down that I had a dream, and I always called them like precognitive dreams. I had a dream that this boy that I liked that was back home was attacked by someone with a knife. We lived in a nice neighborhood, and it was like, this was so strange to even think that something like that could happen, but it was so real that I remember telling my mom, I've got to call because something happened to John. I know he's been cut on his hand. Someone attacked him with a knife. And my mother's like, this is crazy. Back in those days, you didn't pick up the phone and make a long distance call.
Right,
and I'm on vacation. So that it never happened. And I was just bothered by it. So came back into town, saw him, his hand is bandaged. What happened, John? Wow. Some kid, I was messing around. We were in a fight. The kid pulls out a knife and slices my hand. So that, it felt like for me, my chi, or my intuition, was activated in Sedona. And then I had many other experiences. I won't go into them all, but some of the more notable ones were where I remember once I had really strong, and I called them dreams, but they're more like knowings. And I felt that my grandmother, who was away out of state visiting a friend, I said, Mom, something happened to Grandma. She's got either a heart attack or something in her chest. There's definitely a pressure in her chest, her breastbone. You've got to call her. And she said, oh, I don't want to call and alert her. What if, because my mom knew that sometimes that would mean that I was going to see something or something inevitably would happen. And she didn't want to worry her. I said, can you please just call and check in on her?
Right.
So she calls, and my grandmother's saying like, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And my mother said, oh, well, we're just a little bit concerned because, Debbie had one of these kind of premonitions. She goes, oh, she said, well, now I can tell you. She said, I was walking up the steps and I slipped and I fell and I cracked my breastbone.
Wow.
And it's just been really, really crushing and hurting me. So, but when those things would happen, I couldn't understand why. Like, why did I have to know that? Or if I knew it, why couldn't I prevent that person from having that accident? So it became sometimes burdensome to have those kinds of premonitions, so to speak. There were good ones, though, good dreams. I remember I dreamt or felt that I was walking into my high school and that I found a $10 bill laying right in this one hallway, specific hallway. And I remember that morning going in and like, all right, I got to see if this is going to happen. I'm going to walk down that hallway. Sure enough, there's the $10 bill. I'm like, oh, this is great. Why couldn't it have been 100? So it wasn't always bad. It seemed like more negative things though that were coming through. But there was one in particular that really, I want to say, put me over the edge, and it kind of had me reject my gift, not want what people would tell me, that's a gift.
Right.
And it was, I had this knowing where a woman that I was in a golf league with, it actually was on vacation for the week, so we didn't get to go golfing. And I'm seeing her on vacation. She's in a lake, and she's in the middle of the lake, and she's drowning. And I can't get to her. And like, no one is listening to me. Look at her. She's drowning. I can't get to her. And then it fast forward in the dream, and now she's on the shore, and there's someone, a paramedic, doing CPR on her. And then a helicopter comes and airlifts her out to the hospital. Now, this was so real and so upsetting that I remember telling my ex-husband, who was a firefighter and paramedic, and I said, how I don't even know this woman well enough to know to call her. I mean, it was that upsetting. Like, I'm going to call her if I can and tell her to be really careful when you're swimming. So never was able to find her number. And I thought, I can't ruin her vacation. She didn't even know that I was intuitive. So anyway, 4 days later, my husband comes home and he said, you won't believe what happened. One of the firemen, friend of ours, one of the firemen's had a party, and his niece, all the kids were swimming in a pool, an above ground pool, and the parents were up in a deck up above. Wow. It was a really hot day, like 100 degrees. All the kids decided to go in and play video games, and all of a sudden they looked like, where's the 3-year-old? Well, there were all kinds of floats in the pool. They look, she's under the water. So my friend, the other paramedic, Andy, pulls her out and starts doing CPR on her, got her going again, got her heart going, and they called the life helicopter to come, picked her up and brought her to the hospital. So when I heard that, I thought, first of all, why is it different characters? Why did I have even this glimpse into what this tragic event? And so then I started to blame myself, like, why couldn't I have known? If God or whomever has given me this gift, why can't it be down to the particulars and the correct ones so that I could say, hey, be careful, this is going to happen. And then I thought to myself, you know, I can't control fate,
Right.
but it was nonetheless very upsetting. So in the eventuality, this little girl had to be taken off of life support because she was brain dead. And it was just so crushing. So then part of me is like, what were the circumstances there? And I look back, it had to be at least 10 or 15 years prior to that. This same fellow, this Andy, who was the other fireman,
Right.
we were at a family party, and there was an in-ground pool, and all the kids were swimming, all the adults were swimming too. This was in reality, not a dream. And all the adults were done. We got out of the pool. We're all dressed. We're sitting there having drinks at the poolside. And the kids were playing, the toddlers and a bunch of kids were playing on the steps. And just out of the corner of my eye, I saw one of the little girls, and it happened to be Andy's daughter, under the water. I went in, clothes and all, grabbed her by the hair, because I didn't know how else, you know, it was just instinct. Grabbed her by the hair, pulled her out, and she's coughing up water. She was fine. But I surmised that it's something about the energy of that incident was able to get me into the glimpse of what was a similar circumstance that was going on. So that made me feel a little bit better, but it kind of made me push things down. And when I tried to push the gift down, it was not hearing any of that. It just really heightened even more. So,
Yeah.
um,
what would you say the distance, or I mean, not the distance, but the time duration would have been between a dream and the actual event occurring?
I know it because it was about 4 days. Yeah, that was 4 days. It's usually about 4 to 7 days.
And when
on
you're
occurrence.
and when you're in the midst of a dream itself, it's more visionary or imagery, or is it more voice? I mean, sound, or a combination of different types of?
It's a combination. It's more of the imagery. There was another one that led me to doing energy work called Reiki. And
Yes.
I know you know what Reiki is, but some of your
Some of the people aren't familiar with it. Yeah.
it's a Japanese energy modality, and sometimes I liken it to, it's kind of like acupuncture without the needles. We work through the 7 main chakras, and I had never heard of Reiki. I didn't even know what Reiki was, but this story was interesting, and it was another precognitive knowing. I don't even call them dreams anymore. And I had this
Before you
knowing
go on,
that.
I just wanted to ask you a question before you go. When you have these
Yeah.
precognitive dreams, are they usually at the waking hour, or is it in the middle of the night where you wake up, or is it closer to the morning where it's like the last thing you remember of a dream?
Usually in the morning. Yeah, it's usually in the morning. Sometimes it can be during the day that a flash will come, but it's more in the morning. Okay. Right? Like just coming out of sleep, and kind of like the theta wave time of just coming out of a brainwave time.
Right. That's okay.
So this one was, I'm lying in, I was in a doctor's office, lying on a table, and I could tell it was a doctor's office because everything looked like a doctor's office. And the person who was in the office, the man that was there, looked like a doctor, you know, in a kind of a lab coat, but there was beautiful white light all through the room. And I remember distinctly seeing his face. And I thought, oh my gosh, he kind of looks like Abe Lincoln, very angular face. I could tell his hair color, his stature, his height, and everything. And it was so powerful. And the message was, and it wasn't a voice message, it's just a concept message that this is an important event. You have to meet, and you will be meeting this person, undoubtedly. So I'm like, oh, wow. When at the time, coincidentally, my mom was in the hospital for tests. So I called her. I said, Mom, I'm going to describe this guy. If you see this doctor, I'm supposed to meet him. I didn't know for what reason, but I'll run right over there, you know, and I look. So every time I was there visiting her, I'd be looking in every room looking for this guy. Well, she gets discharged from the hospital, never saw him. So now this wasn't 4 to 7 days. This was probably maybe a week or two. And I was chasing my dog, who was a puppy at the time, slipped on a railroad timber, flew up, fell, hit my head, and I'm laying there. I think I was unconscious for a little bit, and I'm like, oh my God, am I all here? And needless to say, I had a neck injury. So I was going to a friend who's just a massage, not just a massage therapist, but a therapist. And he said, you need to go to this chiropractor that I go to. He's more than just a chiropractor. He is a healer. He's amazing. And I kept fighting it. Whenever I fight something, I know that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So finally I said, okay, all right, I'll go. So I go, I'm sitting in the waiting room. He walks out. I'm like, there he is. Wow. So now I don't say a word because I don't know this guy. So I'm lying on the table, on his treatment table, and I feel this amazing heat on the back of my neck. And I said, oh my gosh, that heat feels like it's just permeating my whole body. What is going on? I can't believe that. He said, I'm doing Reiki on you. I said, Reiki? What's Reiki? Had never heard of it. He tells me what Reiki is. And I said, okay, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm a full-time realtor. I dropped everything. I signed up to take Reiki classes at a junior college near me. And since then, that was 22 years ago. And I've been doing Reiki energy healing. And when I started taking the classes, I asked the instructor, as we were working on each other, I said, am I supposed to be kind of picking up and intuiting this person's history, their stuff, their emotional events that have gone on in their lives? And she said, generally not. You might feel blockages, with your hands because you've been attuned to the Reiki energy. She said, but what you're doing is channeling. And I said, oh, I've kind of like always done that since I was a kid, but never knew what to do with it. Right. So then I ended up starting doing Reiki at this massage therapist who was a friend of mine, at his place. And more and more times then, when I was working on people, their loved ones would come in. I'd be like, okay, and this is all in my book too, someone's in the room, they're speaking with you, and they're telling me things that I could not have known. Only their child or their loved one could have known. So, people started saying, well, you must be a medium. I said, I don't know. This is just what I do. This is just what's coming. So I would share with them those things. So when I did initially start with Reiki, one of my friends' son is severely autistic, and he was nonverbal. At the time, he was 6 or 8 years old. I forget because it's been over 20 years now. But I had heard that Reiki can help autistic kids. Right. And can calm them, because they used to always have to give him natural sleeping remedies to go to bed because he was very hyperactive. So I didn't know them that well. They were one of the firemen's families. So I went to their house. They couldn't even have like a regular Thanksgiving because Kyle was so disruptive. They'd have like a holiday the day after. So I came to be with them that day after the Thanksgiving. And I said, can I kind of do an experiment? And I just learned this new technique. Can I see if he'll come with me and help calm him down so he goes to sleep? Right. And I said, God bless you, do whatever. Do whatever you think you can. So I took him into his room and started to do Reiki, and he fell asleep on my lap. So I left him down, covered him up, came upstairs. They said, where's Kyle? I said, he's sleeping. They go, oh, no, he doesn't sleep without the knockout drops we give him, Wow. And I said, he's sleeping. So they're like, wow. I said, I didn't live near them. So I said, how about if we do a deal here? It'll help me to see, to help hone the skill of the Reiki. Right. how about if I work on him remotely? And that's one of the things with Reiki. We learn remote because there are no boundaries to energy. We learn remote healing. Right. So I said, how about if I tap into his energy every other day? I said, just on my own, I'm not going to, you don't have to give me anything. And I will report, and check back in with you guys to see how he's doing. So, but I would do it because he would go to school. So I would do it early in the morning before he went to school in case it would disrupt him or anything.
Right.
So I started, I tap in, I get in a quiet place, I tap into his energy and not expecting to hear anything. Well, now I start hearing these beautiful songs and almost poetry. And I'm like, okay, this kid talking to me? So I was learning. And so then I thought, well, I've got to start writing this down. So I start writing it down and I'm journaling it every other day. So I would say about a month went by and I had this whole journal and I called both parents and I said, can you guys meet me for lunch? I have something to share with you. Wow. And here's Mike, not that, firemen are rough and tough, but, here's a guy who's not super emotional or anything. I started to read the transcript. He started crying. He said, this is the first time I've ever heard my son's voice. First time he's ever spoken to us.
Through your transcript.
The transcript, right.
Wow.
So he said, wow. He goes, and he's the one, he said, I said, well, I'd like to keep doing this. He goes, get a tape recorder. Why are you writing this? I said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So I worked with Kyle for about 4 years. And again, the every other day, and he would share with me the beauty of his spirit, just unbelievable. I actually was also working with his teachers at his school to express to them his wishes and to the parents. And it was interesting because after probably, 2 or 3 months, I came over to their house. And it was so interesting to be with Kyle in this nonverbal setting where I talk to him all the time or hear from him all the time in the remote sessions. So he grabbed my hand and he walked me into the house and brought me and sat me down on his parents' bed.
Wow.
And then stared at me. And I said, okay, I said, the other mom's name is Debbie too. I said, Debbie, what do you think he, wants? Because I wasn't tapping in at that time to see, what he wanted. She goes, what time do you do this? I said, usually between 7 and 7:30 in the morning. And she said, every morning at that time, he comes up from his room and he comes into our bed, puts the blankets over his head, and he sits there and waits. So he was showing me where we contacted each other. I just started bawling. I'm like, oh my God. So that was such a confirmation from him and such a gift that, it was amazing. But now, so I was actually going to write a book about his story and his treasures because I have all of the recordings. And it just never came about because I got kind of sidetracked by somebody else who needed me. And that brings me to the story of Lauren.
Yeah, please.
That you opened up our session with.
Yeah, please get into that a little bit.
Okay, so this, there was a horrendous murder in the town next to my town in the suburbs of Chicago. And it occurred on Christmas Day. And it was all over the news, all over the Chicago news, because it was so tragic. A 26-year-old girl had been with her family celebrating Christmas Day, and she and her mom lived together, and the mom, or Lauren, drove home to her house probably about a half hour before her mom came from the sisters. Well, Janice, the mother, came into the house and found her daughter raped and murdered. And one of my friends who knew that I was doing this work with Kyle and that I do intuitive, or that I'm more of an intuitive than not, he said to me, he goes, "You've got a daughter about the same age, and you should help." And I said, I never worked on a murder case. This guy's still out there. Why would I get involved? And he said, "This is terrible. You should. Can you imagine how that mother must feel?" And I said, "Hey, this guy who did it is probably still out there. Why would I want to jeopardize my life?"
Right.
Well, he kept pushing and pushing, and he ended up calling the DuPage County Sheriff's Office and told them about me and said, "She's not a kook, she's not crazy, she's a business person, but she has this gift and she, can probably intuit." Well, he kind of guilted me into doing it. So I pulled her picture off of the internet to make a connection. And then I get into the zone, as I call it. And I had my recording on because I'd been doing this for so many years with Kyle. It was second nature to me. And anyway, I started to hear Lauren tell me about what happened.
Wow.
Yeah. Sorry. Just even thinking about it. So she, when I do get the channeling, I just do it verbatim. I don't filter whatever the person is telling me. I just went ahead and said. So anyway, so I had a dialogue from her, and the next day, my friend and I took a walk, and I said, "Okay, I've got something to share with you." So I started to read it to him. He goes, "Okay, that's it. You've got to go to the police. You know too much. This could help solve, the case."
Right.
So I said, "Okay, I know you already called them." I said, "But I do not want them to come to my house. I don't want anyone to know. This is too scary." So I ended up going out to them. I called them and said, "I'll come out to you." So I came out with the transcript, and they put me into an interrogation room. I felt like they could think that I know something, how does she know all this? So I was really nervous about even coming forward. So sitting in the room, there was a female detective next to me, and then another couple detectives in the room. And I was explaining to her what Reiki was. And she said, "Oh, you don't need to." She said, "I know, my mother does Reiki." And I thought, oh, thank goodness, she's an ally. She doesn't think I'm crazy. So I start reading the transcript, and the one detective across the table said, "Stop." And I said, "Okay." He called in another detective into the room. Continue. I continued. He told me to stop again. All right. They both said, "Stop." They called in the head sheriff to listen to the rest of the transcript.
Right.
So when I was done, they said, "Okay, can you get any more information from Lauren?" I said, I suppose so. They said, "Here, how about, can you do it here and now? We'll give you some of her personal effects, like a CD," and they had some jewelry and some photos of her.
Right.
So, here I am in this interrogation room, all nervous, and the detective said, "Here, I have a tape recorder, see what you can get." So they left me alone in the room. I had never done this with effects. I don't really need that, but they thought maybe I did. So anyway, I was so nervous, I didn't end up hitting the record button right, but I recalled some of the things, and it was more Lauren talking to her mother and sister and grandparents more than what happened at the scene. So then they asked me if I could do work with a sketch artist, because I had, in my mind's eye, seen what the perpetrator looked like. So I sat with her, didn't go well. She wasn't getting what I was seeing. But anyway, I think by the end of the time I was there for maybe 4 hours, I was mentally, physically exhausted.
Yeah,
So as I'm leaving there, I said, okay, I hope this helps. And the detective said, can you continue? This is the female, Tiffany. Can you continue? And I said, all right. I said, but I don't want the mother to know. I don't want anyone. I said, the biggest thing I'm asking you guys for is anonymity. I said, because this guy's still out there. I knew what kind of truck he drove. I knew what he looked like. You know, I felt like that my personal safety could be in jeopardy if they disclosed that somebody was working on this. So
right.
She and I agreed that when I tapped in to Lauren's energy, I would send an email transcript to Tiffany. So that's what I started doing. And there were more messages, though, as the days and weeks went by, of Lauren wanting to speak to her family and give messages to them. So Tiffany said, Debbie, the mom keeps feeling like Lauren is trying to contact her. She said, and I've even been at the house where the lights are flashing and things are moving. She said, this girl is such a strong spirit. She is trying to get a hold of her mom. She said, can I share some of these comforting messages from Lauren with the mom? I said, okay, so now I'm doing this, working full time, doing this, splitting up the messages between what happened at the murder scene and things I gleaned from Lauren.
Right.
And a separate transcript for the mom. So she was sending it to the mom and saying, oh, it's really helped her. This is amazing, and so forth. So, well, that happened. Okay, it happened at Christmas. So now it's about March.
Before you go, I just want to stop. Yeah, I wanted to ask you specifically, what were some of the messages that she was sending that were of love, you said, or
yes, love, and that she's okay where she is, and that her transition was not horrible, and that the messages of forgiveness. Yeah,
okay.
I never. There's a lot of it's in the book as far as me remembering specifically some of the things. The actual event was, I never shared with the mom, and I never did. It's only myself and the police that know what happened. And that's really tough to have that imagery and what she went through. And she actually spoke to the perpetrator through me, and
as the incident was occurring, that voice, or the voice of her channeling what she felt.
Channeling what she felt. Yeah, like, hey dude, what were you thinking? Those are some of the things I remember, like, well, what for? And analyzing kind of him, that he did not have enough love in his heart and in his life. Yeah, and almost like counseling him, through her words. Right. So here we are in March, and I called Tiffany, the detective. I said, I cannot do this anymore. I'm a wreck. I said, I'm looking around every corner. When I go to work out, I think I see this guy's truck. I don't want him to know, or get wind that something's going on. So anyway, and I never once asked him if I was hitting on anything. I didn't want to know. I did not want to know.
I got that.
And they never told me if I did. So here we are in March, and I said, I can't do it anymore. She said, Debbie, hold off. She said, on Thursday, we got him. We're going to indict. She said he was caught. We got him on DNA from another rape and from Lawrence, and we've got him. So I said, oh, good. Thank you. She said, don't tell anybody. Wait till after Thursday. I said, oh, I don't want anyone to know any of this, that I was working on this. Please. I don't want anyone to know. I don't know if this guy has friends, if he, whatever. Okay. So I told Tiffany, I do not want to do this anymore. And she said, could you please, she said, we need more to hang this guy. And I said, you know what, at this point, I don't want to bother Lauren. if she contacts me, which often she did, if she contacts me, I will transcribe what she says. But otherwise, I'm done. You have him, I'm done. I've done my work.
Right.
So there were a couple more things, a couple more times that she contacted me. And then Tiffany said, oh, in June, the mom started a foundation for Lauren, and they're going to have a run at the high school where her mom worked and where Lauren went to school. And she said, why don't you come, my mother and I, detective's mother, and she said, we're going to do it, and then you can meet the mom. I said, I don't think so. I said, I don't want the mom. I'm kind of done with it all. Okay. So now Lauren didn't want to hear any of that. It was like I had no control. She was like, and I still liken it to, she was the puppeteer from above. She was orchestrating everything. And she picked me to do this. I remember walking my dog once in the park, and I saw this sparkly headband on the ground, and it was like Lauren saying to me, and me hearing her say, you're going to that run. I'm like, rolled my eyes. So where I was doing Reiki at my friend's therapist place, I walked in and I see a poster with the run being advertised. And I thought, okay, Lauren, you really want me to do this, right? So I know whenever I go kicking and screaming, there's something that's going to happen. So, all right, so I go to this run alone. I don't know anybody at this high school. I'm looking for Tiffany and her mother. So I'm walking across the field, and this woman is walking across the field, and she looks at me, and she's called me by my maiden name. She said, Debbie Semania? And I said, who are you? And she said, I'm Janice. And she said her Kiefer. And I said, Janice Kiefer. And what? She said, Janice Lepardo. She gave me her maiden name. Wow. We went to high school together. So this was Lauren knowing that we once knew each other and put us together. I didn't recognize the name because it was a married name. She wow. said, and then she said, she burst out into tears and said, are you the Debbie who's been talking to my Lauren? And I thought, oh no, they told her. One of the emails slipped through with my name on it. The detective didn't, eliminate it. So anyway, so we're just embracing each other and the whole thing. And so that's how I came to get reacquainted with Janice through this tragedy. And it turns out, and I'm probably saying too much of what's already in the book, but it turns out that Lauren knew the perpetrator from preschool. And apparently Lauren was very kind to him. He came from Europe, didn't know how to speak English. And was, her same age, but she in preschool took him under her wing. It was just the kind of wonderful, amazing girl that Lauren was. She had, everyone that ever met her said she had a glow about her. I never met her in person, right, but knew her spirit and knew, who she was from inside. And so Janice, the mom, and I then became reacquainted, and Janice asked if she could see me and hopefully have Lauren connect with us. So we were doing that for many years. I should go back to the perpetrator. So he was then, obviously he was incarcerated. And when it came up to the anniversary of the murder, he had been saving medication in his cheeks or something, and saved enough to commit suicide with it before the trial. Wow. Yeah, and killed himself in jail. Yeah. So it was healing for Janice. It was, something that I never ever thought that I would be doing in my life, but it was a calling from a girl that I did not know, but nonetheless felt just the immense love from her. And I think that Lauren knew that I also lost a daughter. My first daughter passed away. And I think that connection and that love, and it was actually my daughter, when she passed, who showed me the beauty of passing, and that there is life after this life that we experience here on the earth plane.
Yeah.
Because she was born prematurely, and she was in the hospital for about 3.5 months and could not take her home. She was not doing well. She contracted spinal meningitis from the hospital because of the germs, and she was so small to fight it off. But the hospital staff said, she's stabilized somewhat. Why don't you and your husband both go home and get some rest? So we went home. I woke up at maybe 3, 4 in the morning, wide awake, and I went into the room that was going to be her room. And all of a sudden, I felt this immense peace just flush through me. And I'm like, it felt like God's, and I'm not very religious. I would say I'm spiritual, but I felt like this is God's source. This is amazing. And I saw this beautiful, amazing white light just flush over me. And I knew that her spirit had passed. I knew that she transitioned. And I remember sitting there feeling guilty, because I'm like, this beautiful experience that I'm experiencing, but I know it's my daughter transcending. So the phone rang. Then the nurse called and said, you better come. So yeah, we came in, and we had to let her go. Her spirit passed already though, before her body. Yeah. But and it was Erica. My Erica showed me the beauty of that passing, and for years I kept questioning to myself, why her? Why did this have to happen? Why couldn't she live this long, beautiful life? And I would say it was about when the Reiki experience came to me. She came to me in this beautiful vision and said, Mom, I did that for you. That was my job, was to come and show you that transition and how it's not frightening, it's not scary, and for you to help others. Wow. To teach that. And I'm like, so she works with me every day. Yeah. And so then back to the story with Janice and Lauren. Lauren said she wanted us to write a book and teach other people about that life just does not end. Love just does not end with the physical. Right. So I went to there was a woman who I knew who was an editor, and I went to her and said, can you help us with the memoir? And she said, oh, sure. And I knew she was spiritual. And she said, well, who is it, just you? And I said, no, it's 3 people. She said, oh, the memoir, you don't do 3 people with a memoir. I said, no, this is a little different. I said, this is myself, a mom, and her daughter who has passed. And so I had obviously all the transcripts from the book, or, not the book, sorry, the transcripts from the original occurrence. And then we kept notes all the way through. So yeah, the 3 of us put all of this together, and the book has helped so many people to accept that their loved one is in another plane, is in another place of beauty. And now when I do Reiki sessions, I do that. I'm still a full-time realtor, but I do that for people, and their loved ones very often come through and talk to them. And I mean, they have us laughing. It's amazing.
Really?
And they'll let their loved one know it's them by saying certain things that only they would know, to connect with them. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Most of the encounters of dealing with Lauren or past experiences with other people who've passed on, or your communication to spirit, has been in the waking day or just dreamlike. In other words, you'll hear a voice from Lauren in this particular incident where you've experienced that, or how did that go? How did that work?
Oh yeah. Like with Lauren and others, sometimes I'll just all of a sudden get like this message, okay, and I have to, sometimes I'll even write it down because I don't want to forget it.
Right.
And like I'll call Janice and say, oh, Lauren said this or that, and she'll go, oh my gosh, I just was talking to this one, whatever. It's there's so many different times and different occurrences.
Right.
It's hard to remember.
Did you?
But then when I'm in session with someone, it's almost like, and I should tell you too, that when this started happening in these Reiki sessions that I would do with people, I would be like, well, why are people who have passed coming into the setting?
Right.
And I thought, okay, there's something wrong with me. I actually went to a psychologist because I thought, I'm losing it, right? There's something. Well, thank goodness she was very spiritual. She helped me. She said, no, she said, it's your vibration. She said, you came into the earth plane with a higher vibration, which obviously I did because I was already picking up things. Friends would call me and say, can I get on that plane? Here's the flight number. Is it okay? Things like that.
Right.
And so she said, you've got that. She said, and then when you were attuned to Reiki, and what Reiki does is it increases your vibration.
Right.
So that I'm vibrating at a higher rate. And those who have passed or transitioned into another plane, they're vibrating in pure light. It's almost like they're seeing my antenna coming up, and they're coming in, and I call it the Commonwealth Edison substation. I'm the substation, and I get their vibration. I have to step down that vibration, and it comes to me in words, pictures, and thoughts that I then transfer and tell their loved one or whomever.
Yeah, like a hologram that's changed into a visual.
It is.
It's very interesting.
Like one of them, I said, oh, who's the guy with the fishing hat and smokes a cigar? Oh, that's my grandpa, and then that's how they'll usually let the person know who comes in, who it is who's coming in. And then they start giving them, they might give them advice or guidance or just, make them laugh. Sometimes they speak in the language that they spoke while they were here. And I have to say, can you please put it in English? Because and I had one, it was hilarious. This one Italian grandma was calling her grandson the best names. And I'm laughing hysterically, telling him this. And she goes, oh my God, she would always call me that. Yeah. So yeah, we laugh a lot and we cry a lot in sessions.
Did you get any images of what the spirit world looks like in terms of when you're interacting with?
It's different. Yeah, it's different with all of them. And what I have to try to do is I have to try to take I always say, take my brain out of it, my thinking brain out of it. And I just had to clear it so that substation, so it just channels and flows right through.
Right.
But yes, I do, sometimes it's, and I know it sounds trite, but like green fields. Sometimes it's just this amazing white or gold light. Yeah, it's nothing of the earth plane, except sometimes like the green, but then that's heart energy. So that could be part of that.
Right.
But it's mostly the nonverbal. It's just the telepathic messages that are coming through.
Right. Do you work on new clients with Reiki?
Oh yes. Yeah, I take, and now with the COVID going on, I can't see people in person. So I'm taking remote sessions. And it's funny that I thought maybe there would be a little bit of difference in the remote sessions, but I started out with some clients I knew and said, hey, let's, help me out, try this. And they go, oh my gosh, I'm feeling the energy. My hands are tingling, and this is their way. I just did a woman in the UK last week who's stuck there because of the virus. She couldn't get back. And she was a brand new client. And yeah, she was very pleased. And there's a woman whose husband I touch base with all the time, who's passed. She's in Florida, and she contacts me every couple months. Hey, check in with my husband.
Wow.
And then I just voice record for her.
Is there a message, a higher spiritual message that most of the people are passing on? Anything that it could be categorized into something specific?
A lot of forgiveness, a lot of more that you guys are all just learning here. You're just all in the learning phase. Material things don't mean a lot. Love, it's basically love that they're
Well, first forgiveness and then love, because most people can't forgive and they can't feel love.
Right. And I would say love is at the crux of it all. But it's interesting because they don't seem to have emotion, like even sometimes Janice would say, well, how come Lauren isn't, it's her birthday. How come she's, not recognizing her birthday? I said, Janice, those are earthly things. Those are not occasions that, for us, it means something,
right?
But they've transcended into a higher place where, those things don't mean anything. The love behind it, yes, or the message behind what you're sending, but not that it's a specific date.
Yeah. How did all of this knowledge and this insight impact your life in terms of the way you look at life today, or you view experiences? Did it have an impact on you?
I've become probably more forgiving. I've also set more boundaries. I think just inherently because I've had to. I might not be answering that question that you're asking, but
it's
I've had to set more boundaries because there were times, because of this, quote unquote gift, there were people that were, and I'm sure they were people that were past, bombarding me constantly. I'm like, hey, remember standing in my yard one day, I'm hearing all these different languages coming in. I'm like, shop's closed. No more.
Wow.
This is not, and like, I don't tap in, like, I don't walk down the street tapping in to people. It's not right for one thing, but people who come to me know it's with permission.
So the boundaries that you needed to set with the spiritual world, did it also transcend itself to this plane with people?
Oh, it does. And there are people who I notice won't even, like, they look at me like, well, that I'm different. Or if they've got a secret, they don't even want to come near me or they might be a lower vibrating energy, and they know, oh, she can see right through me, and they just go away. I mean, I've been in meetings and be like, and seen horrible things about a person where I'm like, I don't want to be in this meeting. I don't want to, see it. Sometimes things come through like that, which is very disturbing to me.
So you already have a predisposed feeling about somebody before you actually.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And so when at an early age, were you called overly sensitive, that you know too much, or that?
You're too sensitive, Debbie. You're way too sensitive.
That was your father and mother together, or just?
No, now I'm like, I'm glad I'm sensitive.
Yeah, I understand that. That concept. It's funny.
And it's just a whole different, and I remember saying to like grade school friends, different philosophical things that I don't even know where they came from. And they look at me like, you're weird. And
Yeah.
now that I look back, I'm like, no, I guess I wasn't too weird. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, it's a very interesting story, and your background is very interesting, and what you do is very enlightening. There's a lot of people who go through this, and initially, I guess when they're young, they may feel that there's something wrong with them psychologically, but welcoming a gift and accepting the strengths and the powers we have is truly inspiring. And I find your story very inspiring. The
Oh, thank you.
ability to connect with somebody in the spirit world and to pass on a true and validated message is, yeah, it proves
Well,
how.
it's created a lot of healing for others.
It
And
takes away the pain of what's thereafter.
oh, it does. And that's where the book really came in, where we'll see people will write reviews, or they'll, send Janice or I a message and say, I was angry at my dad for leaving, or I was, and then they read the book and they say, oh my gosh, this changed my life. This changed, now I know there is more after, and they know for themselves there's more after. But
Did you ever have a fear of death, or do you fear death?
no,
Yeah.
no. When I was a little kid, I remember washing my face. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old. And I had this whole thing of like, I've drowned. I've had a drowning death. This is an 8-year-old kid. I don't think I told my mom that at that time, but later I did some past life regression, and I've had a couple drowning deaths. So no, I'm not afraid.
Yeah.
I don't want to leave too soon. Feel like I've got so much more to do.
Yes. Yes.
But no, I'm not afraid. And it's funny because my dad, when I was writing the book, my dad was elderly, and I said, Dad, here, please read read the manuscript. Be like, oh, no, I'll get to it. And my dad loved to read. He'd go to the library every day, hung out there. And so finally, it was getting ready to go to print. And I said, okay, Dad, here's your last chance. Please read it, before it goes to print. So he did. And my mom said, he really got through it, and he was crying and everything. 3 weeks later, my dad walked out in the yard in the summer, and he said to my mom, oh, that lily looks like it's going to open up. He loved his garden. He said, I'm going to go out there and see. And my dad was afraid to die. Okay. I think that's why he didn't want to read the book. He sat in his lawn chair, and a few minutes later, my mom found him slumped over, and he passed. And I think that reading that gave him permission to know that it wasn't scary.
Wow.
And that it was okay. Yeah. And then my mom recently passed in October.
Yes.
And my dad unbelievably came when her spirit lifted. And that was a beautiful, beautiful experience when
you felt
left.
it, or you saw it, or what was the experience?
Well, it was amazing because my mom was in hospice at home, okay, with the caregiver, and she wasn't doing real well the one night. And so we all went there, okay? We all went to her house, my daughter and myself, and other family members went. And my mom was pretty unconscious at that point. And of course, I'm telling her I love her and everything and all. And then my daughter's doesn't live with me. She lives in the city. She came and stayed overnight with me. So I said, let's just be close because it could be any time. All right. And I did not want to go back. I said my goodbyes to her. I said, no, I think this is it. I'm saying goodbye to her. I want to remember her as, as she is right now. Okay. Because I went through it with my daughter. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
And held her till she passed. And I didn't think I could do it again with my mom. So I made that choice and I set that boundary for myself and felt good about it. So came home and I said, oh, I need to go get a flu shot. And she said, okay, Mom. I said, I'm going to run out. And now right before I left, I looked on my phone. I said, oh, Vanessa, the caregiver, called and I missed it. So I called her and I said, did anything change? She said, I didn't call you. I said, Vanessa, it's clear right here. Here's the timestamp. You called me. No, Debbie, I did not call you. Right then the wheels started. Okay, something's going on. All right. So I said, okay. So then Erin said, my daughter, she said, Mom, do you mind if Dad stops over? I'm friendly with my ex. We were married for 28 years. So anyway, I said, no, that's fine. So came back from the flu shot and just the three of us standing in the kitchen, I got this feeling. I'm like, is this Mom bringing the three of us together at this moment? Just had that feeling like of love, because she loved him and he loved her. And so then he left and we started to make dinner. And Erin said, oh my gosh, what is that cigarette smell in the house? Now, neither of us smokes. My neighbors don't smoke. Wow. Nobody smokes. So I go, oh, is that obnoxious? And it was in the middle of the kitchen. So I said, I went in the basement and I said, something burning down there? No. I even went outside in the rain, looked under the deck thinking some kids were hanging out smoking or something. Nobody's out there. And she said, Mom, that was weird. That was like an old cigarette smell. I said, yeah. I go, oh, Grandpa Norman, my mother's father, smoked Camels. I go, that's Grandpa. Wow. I said, I bet you anything. Okay. As soon as I said that, now we sit down for dinner, all these alarms start going off in my basement. The smoke detector, the CO detector, the sump pump, alarms going crazy. I go, that's Dad. That's my dad. Okay. Because he always messed with stuff. Okay. So now I'm like, and Erin's looking at me like we're both seeing this, So then I thought, all right, I've got to call Vanessa because this is too crazy. I have to see if something's going on over there. Called and I said, is Mom okay? She's still the same. Nothing has changed. She said, but you know what's weird? As soon as I heard that, I figured, okay. She said, both TVs are turning on and off all the time by themselves. I go, that's my dad. He always messed with phones and TVs and, remotes. And stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So I said, Erin, I'm pretty sure Grandma just transitioned. Her spirit left before her body. And it's usually, that's how it goes, okay, from my experience. So then I went to bed in peace and I called Vanessa at 7 a.m. No, she called me and she said, Mom passed at about 4. She thinks because she checked on her at 4 and she was gone. I said, yeah. I said, she was already, and she was greeted by her father and her husband. Yeah. And I've worked because Reiki is very helpful with helping people transition. And I've helped a couple friends transition. And it's kind of the same thing. You almost can watch their spirit leave.
Right.
So, yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. Very, very interesting. I'm inspired when I hear the story about your insight, your Reiki and your connection to the spirit world. And that they chose you as an antenna for their messages. That's an honor.
It is an honor. I really feel blessed that they do. Yeah, there was one time in here, I have to take back what I said, like I don't seek people out. I don't walk down the street and want to hear. But I was at a nail salon. I'd never gone. I usually do my own nails, okay? I went to this nail salon. I'm sitting there, don't know the girl, don't know anything. And there on the wall right next to me, there were photos. I noticed there was like a photo board, personal photos. Okay, I'm getting the tap on the shoulder from somebody in the photos. So I'm like, okay, this girl's going to think I'm crazy. But when they ask me, I can't deny them. It's so powerful. Okay. So I said, oh, I said, who are the pictures of? You know, I kind of had to ease her into it. And she said, oh, that's my mom. She passed, you know, a year ago or whatever. I said, oh, I said, she's beautiful, da, da, da. And I said, you know, I know you don't know me, but would you be open if I said, your mom's got a message for you? And she's like, oh my God, of course, of course. So now the mom's telling me things to tell her. I don't remember, you know, a lot of it at
Right,
this
right,
point, but yeah, so that's where, but I asked permission, you know, is it okay to share it with you? Because some people may say, oh my gosh, no, I'm afraid, or, you know, I don't want to
yeah.
know, or whatever.
It's funny. I'll give you a little story. I did a documentary film, which I'll share with you one day, and it was about my grandfather, who was a Russian soldier who died in World War II.
Oh, wow.
And he was my grandmother's first love, and she came to America after World War II as an immigrant, and she kept diaries of him, even though she was remarried. So
Really?
that was in 1951. As a child in the 70s, she would show me photo albums of this person, and I would ask who he was, and she would say, you know, she'd just say he was a soldier. And I said to my father, which was his biological father, I said, Dad, did you know your father? At a young age, he said, leave me alone. I don't want to talk about it. So that intrigued me even further to wind up discovering or looking into him. Well, it turned out in 2011, since 1974, through the diaries and through the photos, I was able to go to Russia, and I found his body.
Oh, wow.
And I felt his presence actually coming through the ground and hugging my legs.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Because in my grandmother's diary, she writes, your grave is probably grassed, and there's probably a river of my tears flowing to your body, and I'll never know where you are. And through
Wow.
her diaries and his death certificate, I was able to piece everything together and put him back.
That's beautiful. What a beautiful story.
Yeah, it
I
was.
want to tribute to both of them,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, to give her that message.
And the reason I brought it up is because my parents, their TV went on with my voice. He used my voice to say part of the movie through their TV that was shut off through the speaker. And both of them called me up and said, we heard your voice saying something. It was on the anniversary of his death from 1942.
I know. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. If people's hearts would only be open,
Right.
they'd be open to all of this.
Well, without fear, then you have more of
right.
More of
fear blocks everything.
Yeah.
Fear is such a low vibrating emotion.
As does the stigmatism of certain religious protocols, and
yes.
being able to feel free to express yourself and be in touch with your true
absolutely
soul's purpose. All right, I want to thank you for being with me here today.
Oh, you're welcome. It was great.
And I just want to I will put up your book Infinity on my site so people can get a chance to purchase it.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It was nice talking to you, and
you too.
Have a great day, and I appreciate
Thanks again. We'll see you in Sedona again.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.